Happy Sunday, everybody. Kristen here with Bariatric Mindset. Please say hi. Let me know that you're here. This is a very impromptu live stream on this Sunday after Thanksgiving. And so I wanted to pop on and see how everybody is doing after the holidays. And I'm going to share this and if you guys can share this in the Mavens group, I'm going to share it in there right now so that we can have some other people come hang out. Hello. So at first I wanted to kind of pop on here because we just had Thanksgiving and I've been seeing literally the internet and a ton of Facebook groups blowing up about Regain, blowing up about Back on Track, blowing up about holidays. And I'm like, have these people not been getting my emails? Hey, Crystal. Hey, Manny. And so I wanted to pop on here and talk about some of the things that I have sent in my emails because I know that a lot of people don't get them because there's a lot of different groups, right? Oh, can you hear me? Why do I have no sound? Can you hear me, guys? Manny, can you hear me? Turn up your volume, Crystal. Maybe it's I would hope that you guys can hear me because I'm on my phone and it's turned all the way up. Anywho, this is the time of year that a lot of people really struggle with food. And so I actually have a couple notes prepared because this is the time of year when loneliness happens. This is the time of year where there's a lot of grazing because there's a lot of holiday eats. And for those of you guys who are in my programs, I did the Holiday Hustle Masterclass, which I just launched to the public this last weekend, that they can purchase separately. For those of you guys who are in my M3 or my coaching program, they get that as a bonus. And so what I talk about in there is there's quite a few scientific research articles that show, and it's not even about bariatric patients, but it shows that between October and December that the average person can gain between 15 and 35 pounds, which is astounding and scary. And so we wonder, well, why is that? And so some of the research suggests that it's the hibernation effect, which is the comfort foods and things like that. And then there's other research that, of course, just suggests that it's just the holiday season, and a lot of people will throw caution to the wind and just say, oh, well, you know what? I'll get back on track in January. And one of the things that I've noticed recently is that a lot of people in various groups are saying, oh my gosh, I had surgery 3 years ago and I've regained this amount of weight. Or how did I let it get this far? How did I let it get this bad? Or I've seen some posts that have said, who has experienced Regain? And so this is something that in our community we struggle with because there's not enough training, because there's not enough post-operative care with regards to behavior change, right? So one of the things that we are expected to do is to follow up with our surgeon's office and to follow up with our dietitian. And the dietitian will give us this regimen of, okay, you need to eat, this much protein and so on and so forth. And the thing is that when you're leading a busy life, nobody is teaching you how to break it down. And guys, I live this every single day, and really one of the things that we're missing the most is life skills. What we're missing the most is how to make it easy. What we're missing the most is how to prioritize ourselves. What we're missing the most is self-care. And it's not selfish. And what we're missing the most is how to do these things and integrate them into our lives so that these can become behavior change, lifestyle change. And all of these words I know would go over my head. Okay, what is lifestyle change? Yeah. Lifestyle change. Yeah. That's what they tell me. Okay, go to the gym. Okay, eat healthy. But what we've got to get down to is the nitty-gritty of what that really means. of what that really looks like, because this is not a diet. This is not deprivation. This is not avoiding things that you like. This is literally shifting everything in your world so that you can become the person that you want to be. And the biggest issue that I see is that if you're not ready to make those changes, if you're uncomfortable, or if you're so afraid of, FOMO, that fear of missing out, then that is what you've got to work on, right? If somebody is so afraid that, oh my gosh, this means I'm never going to be able to go to Dunkin' Donuts again, or this means I'm never going to be able to have this or that again, then that's the issue that needs to be worked on, right? And instead of shaming someone and saying you shouldn't do that, there's actually a reason why you are doing that. And unless you get to that core reason, unless you uncover what that reason is, unless you look at maybe our own patterns of reaching out for things that are harmful, because that's how you've self-soothed for years and years and years, because that's what has felt good, even though it's not good for you in terms of health, then that is the issue that needs to be worked on. That is the thing that we've got to get underneath and receive coaching on, because those are the things that are going to, once you change those patterns and behaviors, once that light bulb goes on, then you're not going to do those things. A lot of times I will tell my coaching group and my M3 group is where my office is located. There was one day that I had forgotten my lunch at home. And I said, oh my gosh, there's no place around here to eat. And my suite mate said to me, oh yeah, what are you talking about? There's like 5 places right around the corner. And I was like, there's nothing to eat around here. Absolutely nothing. And she was just confounded, because she was like, yes, there is. There's a McDonald's there. There's a Burger King there. And there was a Dunkin' Donuts right down the street. And I have just, I guess, exercised my brain so much that those are not even on my radar. Those are not places that I would go to. Those are not places that would be on a regular list. And so I have carved them out. They are just not on my radar. And this is what I teach to others, so that you can retrain your brain to go to the places that are going to serve you well, that are going to help you to get to those long-term goals. Because if you're going to do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got, which is where you've committed yourself to not to be anymore, right? And so it's so easy for shamers to come on and to say, well, you had this surgery, why are you going to go back and do that stuff? It is a lot more complex than that. And so what we need to remember is the compassion for ourselves and for others who are going through this, who still have not yet recognized that their commitment to McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever those things are is more deeply seated, and that there's an emotional connection there that we need to rewire somewhere else, right? And part of that is experiencing healthy food as feeling good. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but a very dear friend of mine who I grew up with, and we actually share the same birthday. One of the things that happened was she was also a vegetarian this big, and this was something that happened to me as a pre-op. So the two of us go out for pizza. So she grabs a piece of paper towel and she blots her pizza. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you blotting your pizza? And she was like, well, I don't want all that extra fat. Now, this is someone who never had a weight problem, thin all of her life. And although she did have diabetes, but it was genetic diabetes, it wasn't like a type 2 having to do with weight. But I digress. My point is, she's blotting her pizza. And me, in the mindset that I used to be in, was I want all the fat because that's what makes it taste good. That's what I want. Give me the fat, give me the pepperoni, give me all of that stuff. Like, give it all to me, because that's how I was raised. That was what I thought was good. If it tasted good, if you take off all the fat, you're going to lose all the taste. And so looking back on that, she taught me something huge, because what she showed me was you don't need all of that extra fat for it to taste good. And what she was also teaching me was you can have certain things in moderation, and you can take the fat off. And while it may not be the most healthy choice, she was making it a lot healthier, right? In terms of blotting all the fat off. And it was something that I felt very uncomfortable by. I felt very uncomfortable because I was not willing to change. I was not ready to change. I was not ready to blot my pizza. I was not ready to make it healthy. And I felt like if I did do that, that I would have been missing out. Now, some of you guys who may not know me or who may just be watching this may think, well, that's just the most ridiculous thing. But it is these very small shifts, these mindset shifts of how you see food that really make a difference, because I was so committed to pizza that my biggest concern after surgery was, how am I going to live without pizza? And again, that may sound ridiculous to a lot of people, but that was very true of my pre-op journey. And as a post-op, one of the things that I've learned is not only blotting, for example, but it's using low carb crusts. It is changing the type of sauce. It is changing the type of cheese. It is doing things. Oh, I don't see your comment, Tina. It is changing these things so that you can still enjoy things that you like and that they're on your meal plan or that they're healthier for you. And so when we look at, oh no, I don't want that, give me the full this, the full that, then that is something that you've got to tune into as why you're committed to the food more than you're committed to yourself, and more than you're committed to what it is that you say you want. And as a post-op who's been 6 years and kept my weight off for these 6 years, one of the things that I've learned is that it's not the food itself, but it's how we see the food, right? Yes, the food is important, right? But we overemphasize the food. The thing that we really need to look at is our attachment to the food, right? Because there is food everywhere, especially this time of year. There is that importance that we place on grandma's pie or grandma's cake or that thing that your mom might have made. And so it's important that you recognize how much of that you're having and what you're having, right? And when you choose to have it and how frequently you're having it versus again, like I can't get enough of it, right? So you need to look at what your patterns are with regards to what those, I don't know if I want to call them trigger foods, but the things that you maybe fantasize about. Because again, as a pre-op, I fantasized about food all of the time. I watched Food Network all of the time. As a post-op, it's not even on my radar because I've retrained my brain to not think about food that way. And because food is everywhere, we celebrate with food. It is a foundation in our culture. And so if we don't rewire how we think about it, how we see it, then it will always be a predominant stimulus in our life because, and again, as a pre-op, I can tell you, I lived my life based on what is for dinner tonight. That was how I deemed how exciting my day was, is what's for dinner tonight. Oh, we're having meatloaf. I'm not crazy about meatloaf, but on pizza night, I was happy as a clam. And so again, I don't know if this resonates with anybody else out there, but these are the things, these are the patterns. Again, how we think about food, how we maybe put it on a pedestal, or if we get excited about certain meals, or certain gatherings? Are you excited about who you're going to be with, or are you excited about the food that is going to be around? Are you excited about the sweet potato casserole? Are you excited about, again, talking about my pre-op food fave, which was pizza? Are you excited about, the pies, or are you actually excited to be connected with the people around you? Now, if you have family drama, then it may be the food that gets you there and stimulating, because it could be that you're anxious around certain people, or there are certain criticisms or judgment or shame, blame, and guilt that comes up with certain family members or in certain circles. And once again, it's important to address those things, because when you do go to certain events, that can actually cause you to eat more, because when you're anxious, you may be eating to soothe, right? And I can't tell you how often, again, when I was pre-op, and I noticed it as a post-op, I didn't notice it as a pre-op, but as a pre-op, I would eat to self-soothe, and I would go and eat after a long day and reward myself, right, with food, which actually was an indulgence. It wasn't compassion. It wasn't showing love for myself. It was trying to escape the feelings, trying to escape the emotions. And so these are the things that come up for all of us, right? And these are the things that I work to address, because it's not the food itself, although the food becomes the symptom, right? It's all of the things that go undealt with, that we avoid internally, or that we've made, psychological connections with in our mind, that then create that soothing or that coping mechanism. So I had a client about a year ago that one of the things that she did, and again, I'm going to use the Dunkin' Donuts analogy, but she used sweets and donuts and things like that to soothe. And that was one of those things that she reached out for constantly. And so one of the things that we uncovered psychologically was that the connections that she was making were as a direct result of the stress that she was experiencing at work. And so she would go and get a coffee and donuts on the way into work, and then on the way home, because she worked late, she worked very long hours, she would repeat that behavior in the evening. And while she called these her snack times, it started as a post-op with the little minis, and then it expanded to 1 to 2 donuts, and then it was 3, and then she reached out. And one of the connections that she made was actually back to her grandmother's kitchen, and she would soothe her with, I forget the name of it, I don't know if it's Blintzes or I forget if it was Russian or German, but it was some kind of like soothing pastry that she had when she was a kid. And so every single time that she would experience this stress, that's where she would go. And specifically when we worked together last year, it was a specific time of year where not only was her job in transition, but her company was in transition, and she was going every single day. And she said, how can I stop? And I said, what is the connection that you have? And of course it was comfort, but we had to uncover what that connection was. And so what she started to realize was that she didn't feel safe at work, that she felt that she always had to prove herself. She couldn't, there was nothing that she could do enough to get there, and that her happy place was thinking about her grandmother, and her happy place was thinking about that cooking. And the connection to Dunkin' Donuts, we never clearly got to why Dunkin' Donuts, why not another place, but it was a very convenient place for her to go, and it was sweet. And so the other thing that a lot of people don't know, but I'm going to share with you, is that we have the ability to get a dopamine hit from sugar whenever we eat it, and it's instantaneous, and it's typically like this instant gratification. So for a lot of people, reaching out to something that is sugary or sweet can really impact our neurotransmitters and give us that dopamine hit, especially when we're stressed or overwhelmed. And so this is why a lot of these things, just telling you that doesn't make a connection, but showing you that there's certain behavioral patterns and psychological patterns that are linked together in terms of helping you uncover what these unmet needs are that you're currently maybe meeting with food, can give you some direction to understand how your brain works, how your body works, and how we create psychological connections when it comes to food, when it comes to stress, when it comes to celebratory situations and things like that, right? So food is always going to be in a lot of these celebrations. So at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, right? At the holiday parties, a lot of times there is that food. And so are you looking forward to the food, or are you looking forward to the celebration, to the camaraderie, to the connection, to the fellowship, to the people? Or is the food a way to escape because of self-esteem issues, because of how you feel about yourself, because of being overwhelmed, because of anxiety, right? Because of stress. So that is what I want you guys to look at and to be very aware of, is what's underneath it. Now, could it just be that, oh, I need a dopamine hit and I'm going to have that sugar because that's going to help me get to where I want to go? Yes, because that's biological, biochemical, and absolutely. Is there likely a psychological connection and a hardwiring where we have also psychologically programmed ourselves to say, that feels good. That feels really good. Versus, wow, I am actually harming myself right now. Because the immediate response that we get is something that feels good, but after eating it, usually what happens is blame, shame, and guilt for having eaten it, especially when you're focused on this behavior change in this post-op journey. And so then the blame, shame, and guilt sets in terms of the aftershocks, I guess you could say, and not knowing what to do next, because then you blame yourself, you feel bad, and you're not sure where to turn. And I want to share with you that you can start over at any time. You don't need to wait until Monday. You don't have to wait until Sunday. You can start over. And the thing that you want to work on is really slowing down and being present, and working in some time so that you are able to really reflect on what happened. Did that little morsel get in your mouth before you even thought about it, or was it a conscious decision? And so frequently the blame, shame, and guilt that comes in is because of an unconscious decision, a very impulsive decision that wasn't thought out. And so I encourage everybody to really slow down, to practice awareness. And I talk about this probably anywhere and everywhere, is how awareness is the mother of change. It really, really is. And if you're not ready to change, then at least to be aware of how you feel when these things happen, so that you can start to ready yourself to change, right? And so I'm going to go back and read some of the comments, because I have a lot of these comments. Barbara says, I know that I've achieved my weight loss after bariatric surgery due to Kristen's program. I need support, and Kristen has helped direct me, support me, and cheers me along with other members of our group. Thank you, Barbara. I love you. Manny says, I had a really good surgeon and team, but 2.5 years after regained weight. It wasn't until I found Kristen's coaching group at N3 that there was so much more than eating right and exercising. I'm finally starting to lose the diet mentality, which is what I was just talking about, and focus on why I got off track, and I'm changing my mindset, which has gotten me farther in the last few months than ever in my life. Plus, I've met some amazing women on my journey. My success in the way I think about food has changed. I do not have a diet mentality anymore. I know that I have hunger in my head and a new stomach that is not hungry. Kristen has helped me to move from old thinking. I have a new outlook on life. Thank you. On why I eat when I'm not hungry. I attribute my weight loss. Aw, thank you, Barbara. So, hey, Marie. And Barbara says she's a stress eater and she stops now and thinks before soothing herself. Hey, Virginia. Hey, I know it's Ginger. I'm just reading your profile name. And Trish says, my shame is gaining 50 pounds back. I've let myself down. So Trisha, you can start back at any time and you can lose your regain. And that's what I would encourage you to do, is start back where you are and to look at the patterns of behavior that you're doing on a daily basis. So again, as we're ending this year and going into January, I know that there's going to be a ton of people that are going to be hopping on to resolutions and this January bandwagon. It is too much for your brain to take on all at once. And I know a bunch of my group members have been on here posting, and I'm so grateful for you guys. And thank you for sharing your experiences, because I do not have them do this huge overhaul, Trisha and everybody else that's listening. It is a step-by-step process. We want to take on everything all at once because we want results like that. We all want results like that. And the truth is that this process is day in, day out. It is conscious decision making. It is real, and sometimes digging deep into what our stuff is and what our attachments are to certain foods. And sometimes it's what that food means to us, right? Jenny says, I've gained 60 back. I thought I'd be able to have a baby after I got healthy after surgery. It didn't happen. I got depressed and went to food again. Okay, so what I would suggest, Jenny, is, first of all, are you seeing someone for the depression? And the other thing that I haven't talked about, but working on talking about, is there's internal depression and external depression. And most people in the psychology field don't talk about this specifically because it's not DSM. So there's clinical depression, which, okay, you need to see a therapist, and there's like medication management. And then there's external depression, which is not being unhappy with your life. And so people will sometimes go, what do you mean internal depression versus external depression? So I have had clients in my career that it's more than just external, right? So there's actually, it's just part of their biochemistry. It's just part of how they are, right? There are just some people that have what we might call clinical depression, right? And of course, within the DSM, there's a multitude of different diagnoses in terms of clinical depression. And then there's external depression, which is I'm not happy with my life and I'm going to use a coping mechanism. So in either case, coping mechanisms can be used. And so I would ask you, in terms of for your mental health, Nina, you may need to go out and come back. And if somebody else is on there, let her know so she can go out and come back. Okay. So, and what would be important is that for you to like, are you on a specific medication that helps you? And then are you taking any of the other steps? So for example, and I'll give you an example, we have a member, I think she might even be on this live stream, but we have a member of one of our groups. She knows that when she walks, that is for her mental health. It's not for losing weight. That is something that she has to do every day to really get endorphins and help her as part of her clinical protocols, right? So in addition to the medication management, in addition to maybe talking to a therapist, some of these other day-to-day things are part of like the traditional recommendations for cognitive behavioral treatment, right? Is shifting your self-talk and how you talk to yourself, right? It's about also, I would even say, I know that these are simple, but celebrating your successes every single day. doing what you can, and again, I don't know where you are in terms of your clinical depression, but doing your best to move every day, doing your best to get in the water, doing the best to get in some of the nutritional foods that can actually help you counter the depression. So all of these things are very small steps, but they can help you get there. And then to refocus on, and I don't know where you are, you said you'd gained 60 and wanted to have a baby, looking at what that would be like for you, like, and re-losing that 60 pounds to have that experience, and working through the depression to get to that place. So I think that all of these things are doable. It's about the process, and it's about your own journey and your own wellness, and getting into whether it's seeing your own therapist or one of those, having like a regimen essentially that helps you work on those basics in addition to your bariatric basics to get to where you want to go. And so a lot of times, whether it's depression or negative cyclical self-talk, we can tell ourselves, oh, this is so hard. And so what we want to do is shift that to every day I'm getting better, because what we tell ourselves makes a difference. If we're consistently telling ourselves, oh, screw it, I've already, it's already a lost cause, then we've already given in. And that's part of our core belief system and part of our self-talk that leads to that core belief system. So what we really need to do is to shift not only what we're saying to ourselves, but shifting that self-talk that's inside of our heads, which again is largely cognitive behavioral, to help with that mean girl or mean guy that's talking inside of here. And so it's not just the mindful eating, but it's also losing the screw it attitude, which again can come up if you're fighting so hard with depressive symptoms. And so it took me at least 4 months into the groups to realize I wasn't completely ready and had to break things down into bite-sized chunks. That's what Manny says. And so a lot of the things that we teach are these life skills. So these very basic needs that were not taught. And these were things that even after my own clinical experience, even after going to school, that I didn't even know. And it wasn't until after surgery that I started to put these things together for myself, and then created the programs to help others to go through them. Because we think that it's so hard, and really when you're coming out of surgery, it feels like a second job, because you've got to track your water, your fitness, your food, and all of these things. And it does not have to be that hard. It really does not. If we're able to break these things down into smaller chunks, we can create that ease while also changing how we're talking to ourselves. So over again, in all of these different Facebook groups, I see where people will compare themselves and say, oh, I've only lost 30 pounds. She's lost 60. That means something about me. So then we create that meaning about ourselves while comparing our journey to someone else's. We don't know the differences in hormones. We don't know the differences in why that person lost more than you did. We don't know the difference in the emotional baggage. We don't know if somebody's on a specific medication or not. We don't know, there's so many factors. And so it's very important that the only person that you're comparing yourself against is yourself, and to recognize how far you've come on your journey, and to take a good look at where you are, what you can improve, and how to get to where you want to go. So anybody who, both of the people that were on here, 50 pounds of regain, 60 pounds of regain, you can lose it. You can lose it. It's about not only going back to basics, but looking at what are the attachments to food? What are the kind of neuro pathways that you've built that make you go back to food for soothing? What are the behavioral things? So my surgical team was so great from the beginning to surgery. I think I depended on their cheerleading too much, and now I'm alone without them. So this is more than just cheerleading though. It's also looking at what are the connections that you've made with food. And a lot of surgical centers, you can go back to their support groups. I know that's where Ginger's on here, because one of the local, all of the local hospitals here where I'm at, they have amazing support groups and amazing support group leaders. And so they're very supportive, they're very loving, and a lot of times you can go back to support group, and that can be a refocus in itself. And that can help you kind of like reassess where you're at. And what we want to do is create these changes for the long haul, but we've got to kind of get that motivation lit in the short term by looking at what is it that you want to create in your life beyond the weight. So you had just mentioned having a baby, then that's still a hope, that's still a dream. Then that can be something, again, to refocus your attention on as part of your why. You started this journey for a very specific reason. I mean, I believe everybody has. We all have started this journey for a very specific reason. And really connecting with that why, with that deeper why, is very important so that you can sustain that long haul. And so that you can really reconnect with that, because again, in the moment, if somebody's offering you something and you're not thinking about it because there may be some impulsiveness, or again, the connections that we've made with food, it can be easy to go to the food until you reprogram yourself to say, that's not as important to me as my deeper why. That's not as important to me as where I'm going. And that's the shift that begins to take place when you start to dig into that. And that's where I say you've got to be willing to do the work. You've got to know what it is that you want. And a lot of people go, I have no idea what I want. And the good news is that you get to figure it out. You get to figure it out, because you did not come this far to only come this far. And there are things. So how to get the motivation back, to go back to your why. What is it that you want? What is it that you desire? So whenever you look at the definition of motivation, it literally refers back to having a desire for something. So go look up the definition of motivation. It goes back to having the desire to do something or to have something. And essentially, I'm gonna summarize it as the desire to be, do, or have something, right? So that's essentially what motivation is. So you need to know what your outcome is. You need to get excited about the outcome. That's where the motivation comes from. So Tyler says, I want to get back in the game of life. I'm missing out on the excitement of life, right? And so what happens, I'm going to use that. Thank you for sharing that, because so often we get so excited about food that we miss out on the excitement of life. And food is part of life. But what we need to do is shift, because food is not life. But if we make food our life, then we're not truly living. So after my father passed away in August last year, he meant a lot to me. I went to talk to a psychiatrist. She told me that she wasn't the kind that listened. Well, that's true. I needed an outlet at that time and still do. So so the psychiatrists typically just recommend medication management. And so you may likely need a psychotherapist, counselor, therapist in your area, because the psychiatrists are typically just for the medication management. And I have a lot of clients who go and see a psychiatrist and they write them a prescription, they assess where they are, and then they send them on their way. So that's likely what you need, and maybe even a grief counselor. So I have quite a few members of my group who, while during my group they had a family member pass away, and went to grief counseling in their area because they had to process the grief and loss. And so that's another thing, Trisha, exactly what happens is a lot of times people will get off track when they've lost someone. And it's important that you recognize that you're still here with us. You're still living. This is your life, and your father-in-law would want you to be living for you. Your father-in-law would want you to continue to focus on your health and live your life in the best way possible. If you guys have any other questions, just tag me in the comments below and I will come back and answer those questions. If you know someone who needs this, please direct them and share this video with them. This can be a very difficult time of year. This can be a very lonely time of year. And so this is when a lot of times people need the support the most. I also, hopefully you guys are not just seeing this from my Facebook page, but I've also shared it in my group, Bariatric Mindset Mavens. So if you're not in there, please join there because we also have daily prompts in there as well to help you with this. I miss you too, Miss Marie. I'm sending you a lot of love. I know you'll be back. It's just a matter of time. But if you guys have any questions about the holidays, I know we have another training coming up mid-December as well that I'll be doing on the Bariatric Mindset Facebook page. So be sure to reach out if you have any questions, and I'm always in the Facebook group as well, so you can also tag me. And sending you guys a lot of love. I will post those links below if you want to get into M3, because this is a really critical time of year and a lot of people could use the extra support. So sending you guys a lot of love and happy Thanksgiving weekend, and let's get back on track. One thing at a time, refocus, choose one thing. Lots of love, guys. Bye.